Hey, I was featured in this men's fitness article on full body workouts versus bro splits and what's the best training style after 40. And I'm going to give you the full breakdown. A lot of great information in this article, but I want to give you a comprehensive overview and give you the big bite takeaways from this. Okay. So, first off, these kind of questions are always tough because it's like what's best. It's really up to the individual and your situation. Both methods have benefits, right? Full body training offers good efficiency. It's higher training frequency, better for hypertrophy, most likely with that frequency, and it probably gives you a bit more flexibility in your schedule. But the body part splits are more focused. You can do a little higher volume work on those individual muscles, and it could be more enjoyable. If you enjoy that type of training. But for most beginners or time constrained lifters, full body training or upper lower splits is probably the most ideal. And that's what I do with most of my clients. But if you're advanced and you're an enthusiast who likes training 5 days per week, go ahead and do the bro split. I think either way, you're going to be fine. I'll talk about some of the trade offs here, but both can be effective if total weekly volume and effort are managed well across the week, right? So, um, how does training shift after 40 in terms of muscle recovery, muscle preservation, and the injury risk? And the key here is that when you're talking about over 40, this is a huge category. This is a broad category. We have so many different types of lifters in this category, right? Because like you have an injury-free 40-year-old lifter with 20 years of experience. You might have a 60-year-old beginner, or you have an 80-year-old trainee who's managing multiple health conditions. Like it's just such broad uh, guidelines here. So I mean, like what I'm talking about is going to be generally guidelines that like are for healthy, cleared individuals. Not many factors in their training history with injuries and stuff like that. So the biggest thing that you need to think about here, there's four key training shifts. And number one, this is paramount, is that injury avoidance is number one. You've got to find the joint friendly lifts. You got to use controlled tempos. And some people will have a better time using a little bit of a higher rep range, maybe 10 to 20 reps, if that's preferred, right? Like you don't have to stop lifting heavy weights, trust me. But some people, when I've worked with clients, they just find that it feels better to push something closer to failure using a lighter weight with higher reps in the 10 to 20 range than pushing closer to failure with like going for 5 to 8 reps with a heavier weight. Okay. And you're going to need to prioritize your form heavily, right? Use gradual loading. Micro loading works great as well. And that could be for any trainee, honestly. But yeah, you got to really master your technique because it's important because it's one of those things that you can really use to help prevent injury, like reduce unnecessary fatigue. You want to maximize your stimulus, and that training needs to reflect your experience, health, and mobility. Number two thing to put into perspective here is that your recovery is probably going to slow a bit, right? I think you probably need more rest days. It'll be more beneficial to have more rest days. It could be a good idea to take proactive deloads every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on your age and your training history, and possibly lighter per session volume. So, like maybe 3 to 4 lifts per session, hit those hard, get out. That's going to help you improve your joint and tissue like recovery. Number three, muscle preservation is going to be a top priority, right? So resistance training is going to offset sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. And, just even holding your muscle mass and maintaining that is pretty much a win past 40. And particularly once you start getting even older, if you're like 70 plus, it's going to be huge to preserve that muscle mass. And everything, with preserving muscle mass is going to help you with, less likely to have a fall. You're going to have a higher BMR, so you're not less likely to gain extra weight, things like that. The last thing that probably needs to change as well is that your power work probably is going to become essential. And I think some of this we're focused on. A lot of times I'm working on physique focused training, right? And we're dealing with younger populations, and we don't need to worry as much about doing this power work, right? But these explosive type drills, which need to be managed correctly so you don't get hurt, but they're going to become more important probably as you age, right? So you got to opt for safe, lower impact explosive drills like the medicine ball throws and your kettlebell swings and box jumps and stuff like that, because that's going to help you be able to handle any kind of like sudden things in your life that you need to handle. So you got to train for those, right? It'll reduce fall risk, and it's going to help preserve fast twitch fibers. So those are the big four. Um, One of the notes that I want to make here about substitutions, right, for exercises, right, as we're trying to shift back to injury avoidance, right, is using joint friendly lifts and controlled tempos. Machines are a great and valid and sometimes preferable option for certain populations, especially those with like limited mobility, your injury history. If you're brand new to training and it's not safe for you to do free weight stuff, right, it's okay to use machines. There's nothing wrong with it. And matter of fact, it's great for hypertrophy, right? So for some examples here, if you can't or don't want to do squats, right, try the leg press with a hack squat machine, right? It's a controlled path. It's a lower balance demand. You have bent over rows, right? Use a seated row machine, something that is like chest supported. That's going to create less fatigue, less chance for injury. Instead of an overhead press, use a machine shoulder press, right? It's not saying that you can't get hurt on a machine. It's just you have a little less moving pieces, but also use your intuition. If something doesn't feel right, then change machines, try something else. Like if the machine doesn't have a right path for you to move on it based on your anthropometry, potentially shift away from that and try something else, right? But yeah, machines, they can allow for proper muscle loading without being limited by like balance and stability and certain mobility constraints, right? Like which is going to make it more ideal for older or deconditioned trainees, building that foundation again. Number 3 to cover here. This is the main crux of the article, right? We're talking about which style training is more ideal for 40 plus and why. And I'm going to tell you once again, this is going to be high specific, but I have to kind of give a black and white answer. I'm going with most lifters over 40 do full body 3 times a week, upper lower splits 4 times a week, which is upper lower, or even a 3 times a week full body upper and a lower. That can also be very effective and it's sustainable, right? Bro splits, right? Training one muscle group per day can work for advanced bodybuilders or longtime trainees, but even those individuals can probably see better or comparable results with a moderate frequency with the full body or upper lower routines that are going to emphasize the compound lifts and joint friendly variations, right? Because most of the gains are going to come from hitting those compounds anyways, preferably at a 2 to 3 time week frequency while managing your volume, right? So the full body and upper lower splits are going to be 2 to 3 times a week. It's going to keep your muscles in a state of repeated protein synthesis, right? It's going to help support lean muscle mass preservation and growth. It's a little more recovery friendly because you might have, it could be a moderate session. You can make them shorter in time, but you're going to have, more rest days, right? So like if you're in a bro split and you're going 6 times a week, that's a little less rest, right? So it's good to give your joints and stuff some rest because you do grow outside of the gym. And then also it's really sustainable because you have some built-in flexibility, right? Because missing a day is just less disruptive since each muscle group is trained multiple times per week. Like if you're doing a full body, it's just like, okay, you miss one day, just do it the next day. And you just alter everything one day. Or you just do like, if you have upper lowers going, you're just like, okay, do the other one. It's pretty easy, So overall, I just don't think that bro splits would be the most optimal thing to do. You're gonna, it's fine. You might be doing a little high single session volume, which could increase like fatigue and joint wear depending on where you are, in your fitness journey. And you're gonna have a longer recovery time, which is basically gonna like delay that muscle protein synthesis if you're waiting too long and do this bro split wrong. But it's really not that big of a deal. So now I'm going to give you guys a weekly routine for strength, muscle, and joint health after 40. This is a framework that's going to integrate everything: strength, hypertrophy, power, machine-based options. So I'm gonna show you guys my my blog post here that you can reference. All right, so here we go. Here is option A. It is a 3-day full body. Day 1, ideally, we're doing a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type split, right? It could be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, something like that. You're gonna start off some kind of power movement here. Do a med ball chest pass, right? 3 sets, 5 to 8 reps. Next, we're gonna hit our squats, or you can try doing a machine swap, like a leg press here. Then you're gonna do a bench press. Then you're gonna do bent over row. Then you can choose 1 to 2 accessory or isolation movements based on your goals or lagging body parts, depending what you need. And then we're going to do some core work, and we can give a look over to some good core stuff on my blog later. But You don't need that much for your core. Okay, day number 2, Wednesday, we're starting with another little power movement here, just some kettlebell swings. It'll also help you warm up a little bit. We're going to then do a trap bar deadlift or a Romanian deadlift variation. These are not one-to-one, like they're not one-to-one swaps, but for the purpose of the workouts, they work totally fine. Number 3, do your overhead press. Number 4, lat pull down or assisted pull up. And then once again, you can choose 1 to 2 accessories or isolation movements based on your goals. You may or may not even need accessories or isolation movements. Okay. So these are just extra. The things that we're going to care most about is like your big 3 here, right? Squat, bench, row. Here we got our deadlift, our overhead press, and our pull down. And then obviously we're starting with the power movement for that, working on that power stuff. And then let's move over to day 3. Here we go. We got our power stuff, low box jumps or box jumps, right? This is when you jump off. This is where you jump on. Then we're going to follow that up with either a hack squat or a goblet squat. So it's a little bit more of a quad dominant leg pressing movement. And then we're going to do an incline dumbbell press. And then we have a seated row or a full face pull. Then we're going to do some hamstring curls to balance out the lower body stuff since we did a quad dom movement here. Lastly, do a little bit of core work. If you stick to this long enough and just track your workouts, you will see a ton of progress. Pick joint friendly movements, whichever one kind of works here. What you can see is that basically we've chosen movements that are the main patterns, right? We have a main leg squatting pattern, main horizontal press, main horizontal row. Here we have a main hip hinge movement. We have a main vertical push, a main vertical pull, right? Then we have another leg squat movement. We have another main pressing general movement. We get good ROI on incline press. And then you're going to have a main rowing movement. I chose seated rows or face pulls to help balance out some of the pulling and help with shoulder health. The hamstring curl is obviously just to kind of make up for the lack of lower body stuff here. And then option 4, this is option B, which is the 4-day lower split, right? This is basically just an accumulation of these, dumbed down, simplified. You can run these just the same exact workouts. You don't need a ton of variety to see progress. Like there's only so many ways you can do a squat. There's only so many ways, that's actually going to be beneficial. Don't be doing all this crazy Bosu ball balance things and breaking your ankles, all that kind of stuff. Like do your main squats, do your main presses, get stronger, add in accessories as you need to per your goals and go from there. A lot of that isn't going to change these principles just because you're over 40 doesn't necessarily change a lot of those things. Now, lastly, you want to throw on a little stretch flow here. I've got a great cool down stretch. You can do this before, you can do this after, you can do this when you're not working out. This is an awesome flow that you can do. If you happen to have questions, drop me a comment. You can reach out on Instagram and DM me, or you could go on my website, some contact form. If you have questions over 40, we could jump on a strategy call, whether you want to do in-person training or if you want to try online coaching. We will create a comprehensive game plan for you, tailored to you, and get you on the best path forward. Have a great one, guys. Hopefully this was helpful.